Hello and welcome everybody again. This is like most Thursdays, the Wisdom Factory coming to you with a new conversation. I'm Mark Davenport. I'm here with my partner Heidi Hernlein, who lets me be on camera with her. Yes. We'll meet our guest in just a minute, but first Heidi will explain how to watch and participate in the show.
Yeah, first I wanted to say this transmission is part of the series Conscious Aging. And if you go to this page, the Wisdom Factory net / Conscious Aging info page, there you find the whole series and all the wonderful guests and topics we will cover. So for today, we have the YouTube chat on because we have a little bit of problem with our chat box on the website. But if you want to try and watch us on the website where you find also more information about our guest, so I would say who it is.
Dr.Roger Jahnke.
Okay, so please go to the wisdomfactory.net/live-streaming and you should be redirected to his personal page where you can watch and hopefully also comment. Sometimes you need to reboot. I heard from my friends that they tried it twice and one of the friends got it, the other didn't. So there might be a glitch today with the Google Chats.
Okay, now we can meet our guest. Before we introduce you properly, Dr. Jahnke, can you just say hello to the audience? Dr. Roger Jahnke.
Hello, everyone, and I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to our time together.
Okay, wonderful. The title to our show may say it all. It's a long one. Non-pharmacological, I can say that. Non-pharmacological healing with mind-body practice. Well, as we age, it seems inevitable that sooner or later we go to the doctor with some illness, some complaint, and our normal doctor diagnoses our ailment and sends us home with a prescription. A commercial product designed to eliminate symptoms. And hopefully we once again feel well. But are we healed? Are we cured? This is where Dr. Jahnke offers alternative in his specialty, Chinese medicine. Controversial maybe, but effective? Let's see. How would you like to begin?
Yeah, and maybe we didn't present yourself because all the presentation is on the website, who you are, what you are doing, what you have done. But if you want to say something as an introduction, which is important, that would be nice before we enter into the topic.
Very good, very good. Well, yes, thank you. My background is in Chinese medicine with 35 years of clinical practice. During that time, I realized that most people who go to any kind of a doctor, including a doctor of Chinese medicine, are kind of hoping that somebody else will figure out their life, how to make their life work. And my idea for getting into Chinese medicine was that it's such a beautiful body of information that people would become thrilled, excited, motivated, compelled to understand themselves more deeply. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. I got bored of being around people like that. And so I started writing about an aspect of Chinese medicine, which is called Qigong. You're probably familiar with Tai Chi. If you were in India, they would say that Qigong is Chinese yoga. So in other words, breath practice, postural adjustment, movement, mind focus, internally observing, paying attention deeply to our lives, and so forth. So I wrote a couple of books about that, which were well received by the public and still are of interest to people. And those books are readily available on Amazon. And if you spell my name fairly close to correctly, you will find those.
Yeah, and the links are directly on the website on your personal page, wisdomfactory.net, Dr.Roger Jahnke.
Very good. So actually, I feel 100 times more rewarded by the work that I'm doing now, which is that I train people to be Qigong and Tai Chi teachers. The main idea, I think people have often said to me, are you really a doctor, or are you more like a politician? And I would say that rather than being more like a doctor or a politician, I'm like a social, an enthusiastic citizen with a strong intention for the potential of the human race. And I operate that, shall we say, social activism in the manner of teaching people to heal themselves. We talk about the fact that there is a free healthcare system. Everyone is all excited about the fact that the healthcare system is eroding the socioeconomic, shall we say, situation in many cultures, that people are disempowered by the fact that they believe that they don't necessarily need to take care of themselves. And then later they say something like, if I knew I was going to be this uncomfortable or live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. And of course, your doctor and your nurse and your psychotherapist and your psychiatrist and all those people who are so ready to help you, in a medical way, are not necessarily doing much to be able to support you in, shall we say, a vitality way, or a well-being way, or even a healing way. And so I find this, well, distressing, and maybe even, I don't want to say disgusting, because I never met an evil doctor or an evil healthcare provider. They're just caught in a paradigm that is disempowering and inappropriate for the sustainability of a person, a family, a society. So with that as a foundation, I'll also say that I've done quite a bit of consulting for hospitals who've been building or trying to build wellness programs and integrative medicine programs. And to this date, those projects have been disappointing relatively, because of the fact that most hospitals are run by boards of directors or boards of physicians. And again, no problem with any particular one physician. The problem was with the system, and we all understand that. And so these projects for well-being maximization and these projects for integrative medicine of bringing osteopaths and chiropractors and doctors of Oriental medicine and massage therapists and so forth into hospitals have failed. Not that they will always fail. I think there's pressure in the system. Things take time. Evolution takes time. And how long did it take for a monkey to become a human, if in fact that's how it happened? So, we need to be patient. But in the meantime, the public, that's us, and anybody on listening here today is invited to investigate their own power. And the power of a human is that it is a self-regenerating biological system which is infused with a mental emotional capacity and a spiritual feature or something. So, we say body, mind, spirit. And in the Chinese context, Chinese medicine, the concept of the body, mind, spirit levels is called the three treasures. So our job, if we elect to take it, or our opportunity, which we have if we're inclined to not only investigate it, but celebrate it, is the fact that we have a three treasure system that is infused with glorious spiritual energies whatever that might mean, as well as the ability to moderate our mental, emotional view of things, how we feel and how we think, which then deliver down into a body. So we could say, are you saying that my healthcare problem was caused by me? Yes, I am saying that. And so, you know, we used to be kind of embarrassed when we would say to people, you know, this is all behavioral and about your lifestyle. And people would say, well, that's insane and you're a mean person. I'm happy to be perceived as a mean person in the process of delivering what I feel to be a very powerful piece of information, which is the only person that can be responsible for maximizing our well-being is the person who owns this. And fortunately, in contemporary time, as well as in ancient time, there are immense bodies of information about how to do this, and all of them are free. In other words, everything that we can do to be able to maximize our well-being is free, like going for a walk, free, doing Tai Chi, free. All right, so you might have to buy a book on Tai Chi or go to YouTube and watch a video on Tai Chi or go to a Tai Chi class. But when you get to the point where you're actually enabled to do the practice, it's free. Brushing your teeth with baking soda occasionally to whiten them up. That's not free. It costs the cost of baking soda. And, you know, think about using apple cider vinegar to reduce inflammation both internally and externally. Yes, it costs a couple of dollars for a bottle of apple cider vinegar, but you know, it's negligible next to the average cost of a medical visit, $200 American dollars, and the average cost of a pharmaceutical prescription, which can go anywhere from $7 if you're in a socialized nation, all the way up to thousands of dollars if you live in an enterprise society like the United States, which gouges people for medicines that they do not even need. So
Can I
blah, blah,
interrupt
blah.
you?
Back to you.
Yeah, I would like, first of all, we have an echo now.
Oh, yes.
I try to say little. There is a friend of us. In the meantime, I mute you so I can speak without hearing the echo. If our friend Vivek, he is Indian. And he says, healthcare today has become just fixing problems to perpetuate dependency on pharmaceutical industry. They completely ignore the non-physical spiritual aspect. And that's also what I wanted to say. You say this is all for free, and I agree totally. But we are so fixed on what we have learned from the doctors that is right. At least I'm talking about me. I am not an expert as you are, so I hear a lot of things. This is good, and this is good, and this is good, and this is bad, and this is bad. So how do I know what is really right, and how do I get the inspiration then to really do it instead of just going to do it?
Well, why don't you ask a hard question now?
What is that? The hard question.
So I have a comeback for that, and that is that, you know, we all have heard at some point or another how we are hypnotized by the social milieu. So if everybody's going shopping, then everybody's going shopping. If everybody's going to the doctor, then everybody's going to the doctor. If everybody's pursuing behaviors that are less than, shall we say, contributing to our well-being, then the social milieu will just carry most people along. So here's the secret inside path. Not only is all that we're talking about inexpensive or even free, but it will contribute to your well-being to the extent that you will say, wow. So for instance, if you have a itchy scalp and you put some apple cider vinegar on it, within 2 or 3 days, you're going to say, wow, that cortisone cream that I got from my doctor is not necessary. And the fact that it costs $70 instead of $3 is blowing my mind. And if you can't go to sleep and you use some deep breathing practices, which we can talk about here today if you want to, then you will say, wow, when you feel the presence of a medicine being produced within your body. Actually, let me just show a slide here. We've got a handful of slides. Let me just see if I can remember how to do that. Here it comes. So one of the things that I like to do is kind of blow people's minds. And I want to answer the question of how can we tell what to do next? In other words, you've asked, there's so much information. Why is it that we are so confused? And how can we figure out the answers? I like to show this first slide because it just sort of blows our mind around the subject of longevity, which we're talking about. And then immortality, which I'll just say very briefly because we probably won't have much conversation about this, is that immortality doesn't mean living forever. I'm so sorry, I live next to I work next to a hospital, so we may have to just listen to a siren. It'll go by in a moment. So the false definition of the word immortality, and I'm going to change the screen now so that you can see another couple of words, and you can be thinking about all of these words as we're having the conversation that we're having today. Immortality doesn't mean living forever in the body that you have today. Immortality means, in the ancient cultures, in the shamanic cultures, in the yoga culture, in the Chinese, the Qi cultures, the prana cultures, the three treasures cultures, the mind, body, spirit paradigm cultures. What immortality means is being aware of the aspect of ourselves which is eternally well. In other words, how can we become aware of an aspect of ourselves? Now listen carefully, this is just a kind of mind-blowing phrase, an aspect of ourself that is eternally well, cannot get sick, and does not die. How can we become aware of an aspect of ourself which is eternally well, cannot get sick, and does not die? Now, part of what we experience when we see somebody who's losing their life is we think that they're disappearing into nothingness. And in some way that may be true. But does the aspect of themselves, which is energy in the universe, can it get out of the universe? There's all kinds of laws of physics that suggest that it's impossible for the aspect of ourselves, which is the energy of our being, cannot be transformed out of the universe. You can change matter into energy, but energy cannot be destroyed. One other slide I'll show you right now, briefly, is this one. The most profound medicine is produced within the human body for free. So let me stop sharing for a moment and come back and just say that the answer to your question is that if we are, as individuals who've been granted by the transcendental nature of the universe the right to self-determination, which was made famous in America by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which suggests that all humans are created equal and that they are infused with transcendental rights, liberties, and opportunities for happiness and well-being and so forth. So if we choose as an individual to associate with the common milieu, and the trends for being confused and following, the masses, shall we say, it will be difficult. However, if we choose to liberate ourselves into the given the natural presence of the freedom to be free from false assumptions and socioeconomic trends based on greedy people at the top making more money than average people making money, then we're going to live in confusion. But if we get it, that the truth is not expensive, and that these breakthrough ideas, why are they breakthrough? The humans knew about these things thousands of years ago. So this recovery of ancient insights will liberate us. And so then we will watch the horizon for people of shared values. And when we find people of shared values, just like this community of people who are paying attention to our conversation here today, and the people that you invite to listen to your interview library, that's a community of people. And, one of the things that I would suggest is, why not at some point have a panel? Instead of one person, have a panel of people. And then after that, have a bunch of the people who listen to your interviews, have them be the people who are being interviewed. And
yeah, we did that in the first series. We did afterwards, there was a platform which was called Blab, and we did there some blabbing. This platform,
as a group.
Yeah, as a group.
I'd be happy to come to a blab. And one of the things that we try to do is we use a platform called Zoom, and Zoom allows you to have many people, and all of their photos are on the screen if you want that. And there's even like a place where you can go into these separate rooms and have conversations. Like, wouldn't it be fun to have the homeopathy room, the herb room, the reflexology room, and get people together to share their insights? Because one of the things that we're doing today is that we're reinforcing the fact that some people know and other people don't. And I personally feel like everybody knows something of value, and we need to kind of see if we can level the playing field between the experts and the people who are lost. And I'll say one more thing about how do you decide. Now, the internet is supposedly loaded with all kinds of false information, but it's also loaded with all kinds of true information.
Yep.
And people are invited by the internet to be discerning and to make choices. And so this comes to self-observation. When one is not trusting one's own observation of oneself, one is then inclined to seek someone else to tell them what they should do. And the only way to be able to break that habit is to be informed about the fact that self-observation has value. And the research on mindfulness, meditation, Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga, all of which are self-observatory processes, is huge. And so there's absolutely no question about the fact that paying attention to yourself has value. So we can start with things like, how do I feel if I drink too much wine for me? How do I feel if I don't get enough sleep? How much sleep do I need? How do I feel if I do exercise? And how do I feel if I don't exercise? And if I do Qigong or Tai Chi for a few days in a row and then stop doing it, what do I feel is the difference between doing it and not doing it? So I think the answer to your question is the fact that we let ourselves become confused, because most humans are. So we're following the trend of being confused. Most humans do not feel like that they can figure anything out. So instead of reading on the internet, they don't read on the internet. And, eventually you'll figure out this is a sales pitch and this is information. And all this stuff about hacking, biohacking, neurohacking, nutrition hacking, and so forth that young people are talking about all the time now has to do with figuring out simple things that can be done to maximize function. And I mentioned baking soda, and I mentioned apple cider vinegar. I'll mention using lemons, using alkalizing foods, using the different kinds of diets, and trying them out. How do I feel as a vegan? How do I feel as a vegetarian? How do I feel as an anti-inflammatory nutrition person? There's a list. You just put in, anti-inflammatory diet. Boom, there it is. Put it in a few times and look at the list and compare them. They may not be identical, but they're similar. Reducing carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, and increasing protein, and not even necessarily animal protein, is a huge contribution to the reduction of inflammatory and oxidative. Again, I'm kind of blathering on. I don't want to lose people's attention, but inflammatory internal milieu is now pretty much widely agreed to be the foundation of every kind of disease. So diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, stroke, all have a tendency to be encouraged or aggravated by the presence of inflammatory milieu, which is largely based on the fact that people are eating way too many simple carbohydrates, including sugar. Back to you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you say. And, I want to take as an example people who smoke. They know perfectly that's not good and they should stop, and they still don't. So I want to go with the question in this direction. How is it, or let's say in the other way, don't we need a consciousness shift first, a mindset shift, to really be able to do it? Because we have a whole list of what we know we should do, and then we don't do it. So what would you suggest that people can learn to think in another way? And another thing I wanted to say, I do understand why you want to teach teachers, because the more you know, the more you get into the other mindset, not only knowing by here, but knowing physically and spiritually.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so on the let's start with the teachers. First best line on teaching: teach what you aspire to know. Teach what you aspire to know. So the average person will say, I can't teach anything until I know it perfectly. That is a totally naive concept. And if you think about, let's think about, Newton, the person that came up with the laws of thermodynamics. Newton started out as a teacher long before he figured out everything that he figured out. And one of the people that we've trained as a teacher gives this as an example. I'm an English teacher, but my principal came and said, the math teacher's sick. I need you to take his class for the rest of the year. And she said, I don't know anything about math. And he said, well, here's the book, and you must have learned how to learn because you're a teacher. So all you have to do is stay one chapter ahead of the people in the class, and they will never know that you don't know as much as they think you could know or do know, because, the relationship is always, a teacher is somebody who knows a little bit more than the person who's learning. Not a lot more, a little more. And then, of course, if we follow the rule of teach what you aspire to know, then what happens is that lots of people become experts as opposed to a few people being experts. And our experience with training teachers is that, and by the way, we do teacher trainings all the time. And I encourage anybody who gets inspired by this message to go to our website and check out the calendar and the curriculum and so forth. But the first thing that happens...
Will you say your website so that it's in audio form and not only written on the website, on our website, on his page it is written, but better say it loud.
Yeah, let me do this. I'm going to share.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
And then we'll come back to this slide later. The ultimate elixir may already be present within our own being as an invisible resource, free and priceless. Let me just go down here. And there's my email address and my website and so forth. And we'll just leave that up for a moment while I describe this other thing about teaching teachers, and then we'll go to your other question, which I'll have you repeat. The people that we teach to be teachers and also practice leaders. So practice leader is shorter, teacher is more in terms of the curriculum. And the thing that is, they all say, is when I taught the class, I was freaking out because I didn't think that I knew enough. But then the people in the class really loved it. I didn't get to talk about as many things as I had wished, or to do as many of the practices that I had hoped to do. So I learned right away that the most important thing is teach something small which people find useful. So don't teach something huge which people can't track. Teach something small. And one of my favorite mentors says, out of everything that you have to give, how little can we give them? Because when we give them a little, then they're not overwhelmed and they want to know more. Whereas if we give them much, then they're overwhelmed. And I think I said that wrong. If we give them little, then they're not overwhelmed and they want more. If we give them too much, they are likely to be overwhelmed and will feel like it's impossible to grasp. Now back to you for your other, you were talking about the smoking and...
yeah, how to change the mindset so that we do what we have understood would be good for our health. And as we are talking here in the Conscious Aging series, we try to prevent to be ill in the later times of our lives, but many people just don't care. They say, okay, that's later, and I smoke and I go on. Also, they know, how can we change that mindset?
Okay, so this is my theory. And it goes back to the whole concept of personal alchemy and what the Chinese call the golden elixir. And the golden elixir is the most profound elixir that there could ever possibly be. This one. The ultimate elixir may already be present within our own being as an invisible resource, free and priceless. And these are the parts: the body elixir, the elixir of the heart and mind, that means the intellect and the emotional self, and the spiritual elixir. And so my view, and this is just a personal view, is that if we look at this and take it in very deeply, it will kind of blow our mind and change our view. And so my point of view personally, and I don't expect that everybody should believe this, but quantum physics does support this kind of thinking, is that the material paradigm, the one that we live in, the one that the medical system is based on, basically says that the human being is a physical body, and the fact that it may have an energy feature or a spiritual feature is impossible to know, and therefore you cannot call it a truth. And, you know, I'd say, all right, okay, so we won't call it a truth, we'll just call it a speculation. However, there's certainly a lot of foundation in all societies, contemporary societies and ancient societies, for some sort of transcendental presence within our own being. And so there's another paradigm, which is called the transphysical paradigm. And the transphysical paradigm suggests that there's an aspect of ourself that was involved in the process of becoming a body. So whether it's some kind of consciousness or some sort of energy, or whether that energy is personal or whether that energy is transpersonal, we do not know. But we're talking about mindset here. And so if the idea of having a shift in mindset is kind of like the foundation of what it is that we're hoping to accomplish, then we have to have some kind of a way in to a mindset change. And a lot of the contemporary idea for changing the mindset has to do with getting more money. So in other words, if you change your mindset, I mean, look at your inbox for your email. We will sell you for anywhere from $10 to $20,000 a way to be able to change your mindset so that you can get more money. And then you can have more stuff. And then you can do everything you want to. I don't completely disbelieve in that idea, and but it just doesn't feel that important to me. I'm more focused on culture, society, human potential, inclusiveness, fairness, and justice in the world. So getting more money isn't the way out. I think the way out is an egalitarian system of governance where, everybody is raised up. But, I mean, that's like fantasy land, as you know, and it gets worse all the time. But one last thing before we go is that if we believe that we are invincible at some level, that's just intriguing. If we believe that we have some kind of immortality, that's intriguing. If we believe that there's an aspect of ourself which is already well, it's intriguing and compelling. And so the question isn't, where can I go to become well? The question is, how can I reveal the wellness that's present? What can I do to reveal the wellness that's present? To me, that's going to be, if I reveal the wellness that's present, I'm going to have less pain in this body. I'm going to have less distress in this heart and mind. I'm going to have less doubt about how I spend my time and the choices that I make. And I'm going to have less of a constraint on my ability to be creative, which means I'm going to have less constraint on my access to money too. So we start with well-being that's already there, reveal it, experience the freedom from pain or the reduction of pain, the freedom from sleeplessness or the reduction of sleeplessness, and that contributes to our vitality and our capacity to maximize ourself at every level.
I want just mute. I wanted to chime in. Oh, hopefully I remember that now. Yeah, that striving for much money, it's a value, no? And we think money gives everything to us. And people put an enormous amount of energy into that goal, And so if we could perceive that maybe living well is at least as much value, and if we put as much energy into it and as much work, we would go. I mean, what I to say, we need a practice for that. And when we choose wellness and living well, even in older age, as a goal, we have to abandon the victimism that we are, a victim, but we must see that we can work for that. No? And you want to say?
Yeah, I'm certain that deep down, most of us want what you've been describing. They want to be in touch with that part of themselves that is healthy, that is really eternal. But so many people in their professional life, in their public life, don't want to be ridiculed and made fun of for expressing those views. And so I've heard, people talking about things that might be considered paranormal and saying things like, those are the things I would not believe in, even if they were true. And it goes. We're always bumping up against these edges of ourselves. How do we get the courage to just jump over and be the way we really want to be?
I am so sorry about this phone ringing. I'm going to put it in a drawer and see if I can shut it up. I think we've probably answered this question a few times, and so I'll just reiterate that and I'll add one thing. Let me start with one thing. The word I'll use is the word destiny. And destiny, that's a big, long discussion, and I'd be thrilled to come back and join you guys anytime you want to talk about any of the things that we talk about here today. But as a doctor, I was really just arrested stunned by this. Some of the people that I thought in my practice as a doctor of Chinese medicine, that I thought, oh, well, this person is just going to get well, no problem. And so we'll, do what we do. We'll give the treatments. We'll use herbal medicine. We'll modify the diet and so forth. And that person who seems so destined to thrive died. And it was more than one. And then there were these other people with horrible habits, could not change, had difficult diagnostics, but for whatever reason, even though they seemed like they were doomed, they actually survived. And my grandfather was one of these people. The people that he knew would say, is it because he's so mean that he's so well? And it's just like there are these anomalies, just like some of the anomalies about, you mentioned the paranormal. There are things that just don't seem possible that are possibly true. We'll take one from physics rather than the paranormal. When you send a photon that way, and when you send a photon that way, and you use standard physics methodologies to tell how far apart they are, and then they report back, however they do that, that they're in the same place. So how can 186,000 miles a second that way and 186,000 miles that way, given the universe seems to be boundless, how is it possible that those photons are somehow in the same place? And it has to do with chaos, quantum entanglement, and the string theory and all that. So we are invited to transcend our social restraints. We are invited. And yet some people, so this is the destiny thing, some people can't, and some people do. So does that mean, to me, what it means, and in my medical practice, I got to calling this the destiny factor. What it means is that some people just are destined to lose their lives early. My dad died when he was 39, and of leukemia, and everybody would tell you that he was the one person that they wish would have survived because he was kind-hearted, fair-minded, and innovative, but he did not. And people, we can think of 1,000 people probably if we just took a little time that we wish would never have manifested on the earth at all. And yet there they are, and they get into power, and they seem to have limitless vitality. So I think that the answer is, if your destiny is such that you can reach for what's possible, and then you decide to, that'll work out pretty well. And if your destiny is such that no matter what you do, you are destined for some unfortunate outcome or some kind of lifelong malaise, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know how to explain it any other way. And I think that everybody has a right to try. And we know sick people or unwell people or handicapped people who seem pretty positive. And then we know sick people or unwell people or handicapped people who are miserable. And it's just, to me, I think of it as the mystery that is difficult to solve. So what I would say is surround ourselves with people who have like mind, who will help us leverage into that which we prefer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and reinforce the empowerment, let's say, that you at least try to get better, and and not miss the chance to heal.
Yes, do not miss the chance to heal.
Oh,
I wonder,
exactly.
as we're wrapping up.
Yeah, I would like to say there was our friend who is busy in writing in the chat in YouTube, and the last comment that the Western mentality has corrupted most form of spirituality as cult practices and only sees the negative sides. So
yes, I agree, but we're not talking about cult practices now.
No.
What we're talking about are simple things that people can do. And so let's just, we don't have to wrap up when we're done with this, but we can. There is a set of ideas that I really think we should share very quickly here. First,
you talked also about breath practice that you wanted to.
We'll get right to that. So I just wanted to show that there's a lot of research on my background is Qigong and Tai Chi, but we also know that there's a lot of research on yoga and mindfulness. But this slide shows how fast these ideas are growing. So between 1990 and 2010, there were 77 randomized controlled trials. That's 20 years. Between 2010 and 2015, 5 years, there's twice as many. So 1/4 as long and 3 times as many. So if we actually did a full out comparison, we would multiply 150 times 4. So for a period of 20 years, we could predict for the next 20 years that there's going to be somewhere around 600, maybe even 1,000 studies on all of this. So it's very important. Next thing, it has to do with genes. There's a whole big long story about genetics that we're learning, and I'll only just say for right now that this organization, Herbert Benson is the guy who came up with the relaxation response. We could talk about the relaxation response on another day, but what they're finding now is that through the relaxation response, you can actually change the internal milieu. It is becoming increasingly clear that psychosocial stress can manifest as a system-wide perturbation of cell process, generally increasing oxidative stress, not a good thing, and pro-inflammatory milieu, not a good thing. More recently, chronic psychosocial stress has been associated with accelerated aging at the cellular level, specifically shortened telomeres, low telomerase, decreased antioxidant capacity, and increased oxidative stress, all are correlated with increased vulnerability to a variety of disease states. What that means is that we are basically, by being stressed all the time, kind of killing ourselves, and that things like Tai Chi and yoga and so forth are not only reduce cell death, but they are kind of like the fountain of youth. In other words, the fountain of youth isn't somewhere in the world. The fountain of youth is within us. And we can maybe talk about this another time. But for right now, what I want to do is go to a breath practice. And this breath practice basically focuses on I'm using my cursor here. I wonder if you can see it. There are some structures in the lungs right here. And how we will do this practice is, let's see if I can find it. I guess I'll just describe it to you. So let's just stay on this slide and listen carefully. It's very simple, and we'll do this together. There are thousands of breath practices. We're just going to do one, and I'll stop sharing so that you can see me. So the idea is that we're going to take a very full breath, and we only have a few moments, so we're only going to do just this one little tiny thing. We're not going to practice Tai Chi. We're not going to do Qigong movements. We're just going to investigate the power of one breath practice. And so it goes like this. First, adjust your posture and so forth, and then breathe in deeply. So fill your belly first and then your chest. Big breath in. And then we're going to hold for a count of 1, 2, 3. And then exhale very slowly through your nose. And then breathe normally for a moment, and allow me to describe what we're going to try to accomplish by doing this. As you do this 3 or 4 times, what happens is that those structures that I was pointing to in the lungs, called stretch receptors, are engaged. And when those stretch receptors are engaged, along with what's called baros receptors, which are in the aorta, it produces a drug in the body that is free. And that drug is based on acetylcholine, and acetylcholine is based on choline, and choline is the root of molecule of all the neurotransmitters which are produced by the vagal system, the parasympathetic rest and recovery system. So what we're doing here is, when we hold the breath for a few moments, we're triggering certain functional entities in the lungs and in the aorta, which are then diffusing drugs into the system, which are based on the drugs, creating neurotransmitters which calm down the nervous system and help people to overcome addiction or sleep or anxiety or PTSD. And we're going to do this 3 more times. And the most important piece of this is self-observation. So I want to give you and everyone who's watching the opportunity to have an experience of an internal change that is based on health, maximization, recovery, the capacity of the human system to heal itself. So here we go. We're going to breathe in, deep breath, belly, chest, and hold. Now you can have your eyes open or your eyes closed, and then exhale very slowly. And as you're exhaling, notice what you're feeling all the way from your top of your head to the tip of your toes, to the tip of your nose, to the tips of your fingers. Slow exhalation. Then take 1 or 2 natural breaths. Breathe in again deeply. Hold for a count of 3 or 4 or 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 if you like, 5 if you want. Slowly out, very slowly out. Notice what you're feeling. Take a few natural breaths now. Scan the body, notice what you're feeling. We're going to do it one more time. And then as soon as your breath is out from the last time, put into the chat box the sensation that you're feeling. So the phrase would be, in my chest, I feel something. In my face, I feel something. In the tips of my fingers or in my arms, I feel something. In my legs, I feel something. Or in anywhere else, you could just say, say the part of the body, and then what is it that you feel? Okay, big, deep breath, belly, chest, hold. Hold for 3, 4, or 5, your choice. Exhale very slowly, very slowly. Notice what you're feeling. And then breathe normally and notice what you're feeling, and make a note in the chat box if you will, please. And then let's just be quiet for another 15 seconds so we can feel what we're feeling. And then let's bring our attention back to our here and to our hosts. Would you say just briefly, like, what are you feeling? And then maybe you could read a few of the folks who are listening, if you would just put something in there about what you feel and where you feel it, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure we can call this a feeling, but I felt an expansion. I felt like I was growing, getting bigger, and that all my body was filling up.
So that is a feeling. And the question is, and this is the power of these practices, because we might say, well, how will I change my mind? How will I become excited about the possibilities enough to change my mind? Well, or my mindset, or my behaviors, or my habits, or the people that I hang around with. That as we start to feel these feelings, like when you feel expansion, you got to ask the question, what is it? I mean, you look the same size to me. And so are your cells expanding in some very minor sort of way? Are the spaces between your cells expanding? Is there something about the delivery of fluids throughout the body which give you a sensation? Because of the fact that when you do this, you're triggering those neurotransmitters. Are you feeling a feeling of the acceleration of the healing, the natural healing process within the human system? It creates a kind of curiosity and enthusiasm as we have these experiences. And my theory is that that's what leads to the behavior change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have felt very strongly a sort of altered state of consciousness in my head. It was like, you can call it also expansion, but it was really a little bit like in meditation. And in the body, also in the head, in the nose, in the whole body, tickling, also in the fingers, and my heartbeat was quicker. And yeah, it went through the whole body. It's like, it's especially the out breath, the slow out breath goes from up, and down, down, through like a, like
hydraulics.
Don't you just love that? And so in just a few moments, we can have an experience like that. So, what would happen if we did that every day? what would happen if we did that instead of for a few moments, we did that for 20 minutes or a half an hour? Now, how much of the medication that we pay too much money for that we don't even need could we stop using if we would do these things? So I'm putting up my slide here. The most profound medicine is produced within the human body for free. Did you get any responses from the peanut gallery?
No, there is only on the YouTube chat, unfortunately, is only one person who didn't write now, and our normal chat doesn't work. I'm so sorry, people.
Sorry.
Well,
that's fine. You know, what I know from people, I teach this all the time, and my experience with thousands of people is that somewhere around 85% of everybody in any audience anywhere have some sort of a sense of a change, and really that's all we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I think everybody will have feel
it.
Even those people who have not a very good developed ability to sense into their own body, because this is also a thing you can learn, you know,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think the message that we wanted to give to people about a non-pharmacological approach to healing is, you know, been exchanged. And I'd be happy to answer another question if you want to, or we can get together again sometime. Yeah. And when you're ready to do a panel, I'd be thrilled to be on it.
Yeah, I will find people in your field and we do it together. Yeah. And you know what I find as a sort of closing word? Don't pay the chemicals, don't give the money to the farmer, but have your chemicals in your site.
Make your own chemicals.
Make your own chemicals, your own drugs.
Yeah. Save the money and go to the movies.
Yeah, there we go. That's
great. A nice thing. We are at our, that's our time to stop at this moment. So I thank you very, very, very much. I thank all the viewers who are still here. Many of them have waited until the end, been with us to the end. And I hope you had a good experience also with this exercise and with all this information. And really happy.
Very good. Well, I'll just I'll put up my information one more time, and you can close out, you know, whenever you're ready to.
Okay, and I thank you very much. And we do another. You want to say something?
Sure, I do.
Oh, yeah, do.
Actually, I just want to say that we didn't have to work very hard during this broadcast.
No,
he did all the work, and we feel better. What a deal! Thank you so much, Dr. Jahnke.
And we got our
many blessings. Wishing everybody a happy day and a happy year. Take care now.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.